Hey there, I'm Phil from The Inside Job, and I just wanted to say a few things to introduce this new series I'm calling The Earth, Skies, and Everything in Between 10 Reflections from a Hebrew Poem. The Hebrew creation story found in the first chapter of Genesis is one of the most familiar, but also highly debated texts from the Bible. So the thought of doing a series of videos about this particular ancient text is a little nerve-wracking, but that's also what makes it kind of fun. It seems to me that there are far deeper and more profound things at work in this story than many of the conversations surrounding it seem to suggest. This story is about the world we live in and the energies that drive it. It's about creativity and design and structure. It's about the stories we tell and the ones we don't. And it's about the way we order our lives and our world, about our fundamental goodness and our purpose here as caretakers of this incredible home of ours. So you might be asking, well, that sounds great. Why all the controversy? I think one of the reasons this text has such a long history of debate simply comes down to a misunderstanding of literary genre. In other words, if I was to read Hamlet as a life coaching manual or The Hobbit as a history of England, then I wouldn't only be disrespecting the intentions of Shakespeare or Tolkien, but I'd also be missing the purpose and meaning behind the stories that they had written. Now, we, humans, we've been telling stories for thousands of years. And yes, these stories were told for entertainment, but they were also way more. Because story is what gives meaning and order and purpose, and some would argue wisdom, to the otherwise chaotic and random happenings in our lives. And these ancient texts are no different. But if we don't read or hear these stories the way their ancient authors intended them to be heard, then there's a good chance we're actually missing a lot of the wisdom and depth that these stories have to offer. And I don't know how you might have encountered this text, but for its early audiences, this particular story was politically charged and culturally subversive. It was a poetic and sophisticated counter-narrative that pushed back on the dominant worldview of the day. A worldview that said that the cosmos, the earth and the skies were spun out of self-inflated power grabs and acts of war and violence, and that human beings existed only to serve the God King who oppressively ruled over them from his lofty place of privilege and power. But these Hebrew authors refused to accept that picture of the world, and through this text, which they placed at the very front of their sacred scriptures, insisted that the fundamental forces of creation were beauty, not destruction, acts of speech rather than acts of war, order over chaos, and that all of humanity, not just the king, were endowed with this divine DNA and carried in them a sacred role in the world as co-creators and representatives of love and being itself. Still, even when we begin to grasp what this poem was doing in its original purpose and design, we're just scratching the surface. I love the tradition that arose from some of the earliest rabbis who spoke of the many faces of the scriptures. It was as if encountering this ancient library was like turning a diamond, each time revealing a new facet of insight and wisdom. So these are some of the reflections that I have found as I've turned this ancient poem again and again. And I've named this series The Earth, the Skies, and Everything in Between because, well, quite simply, the whole of our life, our being born and eating cake and laughing so hard your stomach hurts, the love that opens our heart and the heartbreaks that slam it shut, our incredible successes and the failures that nearly break us, all of these happen right here at this powerfully fragile convergence of the earth and the skies. And in this busy and distracted culture of ours, this ancient poem is still offering us a counter-narrative, an invitation into a deeper connection with ourselves, each other, our Creator, and this wonder-filled universe that began in the beginning.